read this morning coming in that our good friend, the gentleman from Portsmouth, Mr. Melvin, has decided to pursue other pursuits. And I wanted to say to him how much, speaking for myself and I believe others, that we will miss him. He's a man of deep conscience, a man of collegiality, and a person that I have respected since I was elected 8 years ago. And I will miss him. And I want to tell him how very proud I am of the tremendous service that he has rendered this great Commonwealth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Portsmouth, Mr. Melvin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. During the 24 years I've been here, I have not become jaded about walking into this room, this chamber, and looking around and being actually awed at times that I could be sitting here. And I think one of the most important reasons, of course, is the history of this place, and now the people who are my colleagues. I've learned a great deal. I've learned that we have differences across this state in terms of culture, where we are physically, and the way we view things. At first, during my first couple of terms, I had trouble understanding why people didn't view things, just about like me, because I thought I was right. But in time, I've come to appreciate those differences. Now I have colleagues like the gentleman from Shenandoah, gentleman from Charlottesville, who I vehemently disagree with in terms of philosophy. But I understand. And I like them very much. As a matter of fact, they could vote for me. And one of the reasons I knew it was almost time to go was when in courts of justice, they came to tell me on at least a couple of times this year, we held this vote up so you could vote no before we passed it. I'm going to miss this place. This has been almost like my second home for 24 years. It's been great. Thank you very much.
I've overlapped much of the gentleman's service in this body. And I've seen some giants come and go, and I miss every one of them and all that I have learned from them and continue to learn. And Kenny, I just can't picture not having your influence, the reality that you have brought to this floor debate that more than once has turned minds. It has turned minds as they have come to understand a different perspective of the world.
Because if Kenny stood up on the floor on your bill and started talking about it, you knew, one, people were going to listen because he's not like me and some of the others who stand up daily. But when he stands up and talks, you know it's coming from the heart. As the gentlelady said, it's from a strong intellect and well-reasoned and thought out. And while we haven't always agreed, many, many times he's turned my mind on the floor. Further, in committee, and having served with him on the courts committee for a number of years now, many times he has persuaded me, to the chagrin of the gentleman from Shenandoah and Albemarle, that he was right. And he would say, wait a minute, folks, if you want to do this, fine, but let me just say, let me make it perfectly clear what we're about to do.
When he applied that keen intellect, there was never any question as to what it was about. Mr. Speaker, it was about representing the folks back home. And what Kenny did for me, and I think did for so many of us, others of us here, is to understand and remember the folks back home, the people that we represent.
There are great minds on this floor. There are great communicators. Not necessarily do we find them all in the same person. It has been a rare privilege to sit with you. As when you sit with one another on the Courts of Justice Committee, you spend a lot of time with one another and you really get to know one another. And it has been so wonderful to sit and to watch his intellect and his mind as he dissects the bill. And it's been said on this floor many times that he has made a great difference.
Because quite frankly, serving in this Virginia House of Delegates, I think is the greatest honor and privilege any of us can have, because of individuals with the character and the integrity of the gentleman from Portsmouth. Thank you.
I think he needs to understand not only the impact he has had on this body, on public policy, but on junior members. Often we don't think of politicians as role models, but he is one.
You leave this body, unlike Kenny Melvin, have not built relationships with the other side, with the underside, with the overside, where you missed the whole point. And I would say today, Mr. Speaker, in honor of Kenny Melvin, that when the House adjourned today, that he do so in honor of Delegate Ken Melvin for Portsmouth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Believe it or not, members of the House, Ken Melvin tries his best to hold me down here sometimes. And I know I say things sometimes, and I want to say things, and I like to write things down, and I want to say them. And Ken Melvin will scratch and say, you can't sit there on the floor.
One by one, there's a learning process that happens in courts where you learn to listen to Kenny. And at first you're doing it just because you don't want to be embarrassed on the floor, you don't want to get beat, but over time you realize the reason you listen is because he's right. He makes the bills a better place. The laws of this Commonwealth are better because of Kenny Melvin's input and because of his advocacy in committee. And so, Kenny, on behalf, I don't want to speak for Gilbert, but certainly all the rest of us, except for Gilbert.
I can tell you one thing. When it comes to working for the people of this state and the people in our city, you're not going to find a finer or better person than Ken Melvin.
Everyone can be succeeded, but not necessarily replaced. Kenny, it's going to be very difficult to replace you. It's going to take a woman or a man with big shoes to replace you. I've enjoyed working with you. Thank you.
And the rest of us would agree with this, but Kenny would not. When Kenny Melvin takes this floor, there's total respect. Kenny, we will miss you. We love you very much.
I think of the gentleman from Portsmouth as like kind of a fixture here. And it's going to be hard for me to think of him not being here, like one of these posts or these lights or something that holds this place together.
I've only been here 22 years, but I can count on less than one hand the number of people that have been able to change people's minds as much as you have. And I remember when I first went on the Courts Committee, you remember the good old days, Kenny, when they used to have Republicans sitting at either end and all the Democrats in the middle. And I found myself, since there were only four of us, it didn't take me long to get a little bit of seniority. And I was sitting next to Kenny Melvin. And these bills would come in, and they were bills that some of my guys might have put in, and tough on crime. And Kenny would say, you know, Bill, I'm not really sure this is the best thing to do, and here's why. And I started voting more with Kenny than I did in my caucus, and they finally moved me. They wouldn't let me sit next to Kenny. But we are all going to miss you greatly, and you are a good friend and a wonderful representative, and we all wish you the very best in the future.